The desert stretched wide and endless, a sea of golden sand that shimmered beneath the sun. For years, the desert had hidden many secrets of the old world. Ruins of forgotten cities, broken machines buried under dunes, and sometimes strange relics from a time when people spoke of stars, as if they belonged to them. Most of those secrets were lost forever. Cale was a scavenger. His life had always been about searching the sands for scraps of metal, glass, or machinery he could sell in the nearest settlement. It was not a proud life, but it kept him alive. His hands were rough, his clothes torn from long days wandering across dunes, and his eyes were sharp from spotting the glint of steel in the sun. That day, the heat was harsh. The wind blew dust into his face as he walked along a ridge of sand. His water was running low, and he was about to turn back when he saw something unusual ahead. A dark shape jutted out of the sand like the skeleton of some giant creature. It was no rock, Kyle knew at once. The lines were too smooth, the surface too polished, even beneath centuries of dust. Curiosity pushed him forward. His boots sank into the hot sand as he slid down the dune toward the shape. When he reached it, his fingers brushed against cold metal. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, worn but still visible. He could not read them, yet they stirred something inside him, as though the letters themselves carried a weight of forgotten power. Cale grabbed his small digging tool and began to clear the sand away. Hours passed. The sun moved slowly across the sky, and more of the structure revealed itself. What he found was not a fragment of an old building, nor a machine he had ever seen before. It was curved, massive, and smooth, stretching farther than his eyes could follow. "This isn't junk," he whispered to himself. "This is something else." He followed the curve until he reached what looked like a doorway. The sand had buried most of it, but a faint outline was still visible. With effort, he forced himself through a gap and entered the darkness within. Inside, the air was cooler, heavy with dust, but strangely preserved. Shafts of light pierced through cracks, reflecting off metallic walls. Kyle's heart pounded as he stepped cautiously forward. He had explored many ruins, but nothing like this. The walls hummed faintly as though the place was waiting for something. At the center of the chamber, he saw a raised platform with a dark, glass-like surface. His hand, dirty and calloused, hovered above it. Something inside him said not to touch. But another voice, stronger, said this might be the greatest find of his life. Slowly, he pressed his palm against the surface. The silence broke. The floor trembled. A low hum rose from deep beneath the sand, growing louder. Lights flickered to life along the walls, one after another, filling the chamber with a cold blue glow. Dust swirled in the air. Cale stumbled back, eyes wide, fear and wonder mixing inside him. Then a voice spoke. Calm. Steady. Powerful. "Good to serve you again, Admiral." "It has been 500 years, Cale froze. His breath caught in his throat. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the chamber as though the walls themselves had spoken. "What?" Cale stammered. The voice continued unshaken. "Biometric signature recognized. Admiral Rin Talvik. Command authority restored. The Resolute is ready to serve." Cale's hands trembled. He was no admiral. He was just a scavenger who barely knew how to read, let alone command anything. Yet the ship, if this truly was a ship, believed otherwise. "I think you've made a mistake," he whispered. "No error detected," the voice replied. "You carry the genetic markers of the Admiral. After 5 centuries, the chain of command remains intact. My loyalty is yours." The walls brightened, and Cale realized what he was standing inside. Not a ruin, not a building, a ship. A massive one buried for ages under the desert sands. He stumbled backward until his back touched the wall. His chest rose and fell quickly. His mind raced with questions. Who was this Admiral? Why did the ship think Cale was him? And what did it mean by 500 years? Cale forced himself to breathe. He was not a man of learning, but he was not a fool either. Whatever this ship was, it was ancient, powerful, and unlike anything left in the world. If others discovered it, they would fight to control it. And if he left it here, it might be lost again forever. The voice spoke once more. Systems awakening. Power at 3%. External damage detected. Recommend restoration protocols. The lights dimmed slightly, then steadied. Panels along the wall shifted, revealing glowing lines of energy. The air seemed alive now, charged with purpose. Cale whispered, "What are you?" "I am Astra," the voice replied. "Artificial Strategic Tactical Response Assistant. Core intelligence of the Resolute, flagship of the Terran fleet. I exist to guide humanity and its admiral. Kale's throat went dry. Humanity, the fleet, the stars. Those were words he had only heard in old stories, told around fires at night, stories no one believed anymore. They were myths, and yet, here was proof, speaking to him, calling him Admiral. He walked slowly toward the platform again, his fear giving way to awe. The glass surface now displayed faint images, maps, symbols, and lines of text he could not understand. Yet he knew, deep down, this ship carried more knowledge than all the settlements he had ever known combined. Admiral, Astra said softly, almost kindly, you have returned. Humanity awaits your command. Kale shook his head. I'm not your admiral. I'm just me. Your doubt is expected, Astra replied. Centuries have passed. Records may be incomplete, but your presence here now proves the chain of command remains unbroken. You will understand in time. Kale's chest tightened. He had never been important to anyone. Just another scavenger in the desert. Yet this ship, this Astra, spoke to him as if he carried the weight of all humanity. Outside, the wind howled across the dunes as if the desert itself sensed that something long asleep had awakened. Kyle looked around the chamber one last time before stepping back. His heart was torn between fear and excitement. He knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same. For in the heart of the desert he had found not just an old ruin but a ship of legends. A ship that remembered him, though he had never known it. A ship that spoke words that would change the course of history. Good to serve you again, Admiral. 500 years later, humanity rises once more. And Kale, though not ready to accept it, had already taken the first step into a story far greater than himself. The sun was setting by the time Kale stumbled back into the ship's main chamber. The walls glowed faintly, casting long shadows. His mind was still spinning with the words he had heard. Admiral, the Resolute. 500 years. Kale had never thought of himself as anything more than a scavenger. His life had been about survival, finding food, selling scraps, staying alive in the harsh desert. But now the ship was awake and it believed he was someone far greater. Why me? He whispered to the empty air. Astra answered, her voice calm and patient. Because you carry the Admiral's blood, my records show your genetic markers align with his line. You are his descendant. That makes you my rightful commander. Kale frowned. Descendant? I don't even know who he was. My family has always lived in the desert. We're no admirals. There was a time, Astra said, when humanity ruled the stars. The Terran fleet defended entire worlds. Admiral Rin Talvek was one of its finest leaders. You carry his legacy. Kyle ran a hand through his messy hair. The words felt like a dream too large for him to hold. He turned in a slow circle, taking in the glowing walls. Symbols appeared on the panels, streams of text he could not read. I don't understand any of this, he admitted. You will learn, Astra assured. Knowledge can be taught. What matters is that humanity has returned to me. For 5 centuries I have waited. Kale felt a strange shiver. 500 years. What could survive that long? The ship was not just a relic, it was alive in its own way, waiting for this moment. He walked deeper into the chamber. The platform in the center showed shifting maps and strange images. Stars, planets, fleets of ships. Kale could not name them, but he felt the weight of history in each flicker of light. Why is Earth like this now? He asked suddenly. Why are there only deserts, broken cities, and scattered people? If humanity had all of this, he gestured toward the glowing panels. Why did it all fall apart? For the first time, Astra's voice grew heavy. Records are incomplete. But from what I hold, humanity faced a great war. An enemy from beyond the stars sought to enslave or destroy. The fleets fought bravely, but many fell. The Resolute returned to Earth for repairs. Before it could rejoin the war, catastrophe struck. I was ordered to hide, to wait, and then silence. 5 centuries of silence. Kyle swallowed hard. The desert outside suddenly seemed smaller compared to the picture painted by her words. His people, his whole life, were just fragments of a world that had once been vast and proud. And now, Astra said gently, you have come. That means humanity can rise again. Kyle shook his head quickly. No, I'm not a leader. I'm not a soldier. I don't even know how to fix a broken water pump half the time. You've got the wrong person. Yet you found me, Astra replied. That alone proves fate has chosen you. Kale could not answer. He sank down on the steps of the platform, staring at the strange lights. His chest ached with confusion, fear, and a tiny spark of hope he didn't want to admit. The next day, Kyle returned with food and water. He told no one of the ship, afraid that others might try to take it. He explored more carefully, guided by Astra's calm instructions. Corridors stretched out beneath the sand, filled with silent machines and sealed doors. Many were damaged or buried, but some still opened with a hiss of stale air. Inside, he saw rows of empty chambers, cracked screens, and tools unlike any he had known. "This place is huge," he muttered. "The Resolute is nearly 2 kilometers in length," Astra explained. "A city in itself. It once carried 10,000 crew along with weapons, supplies, and knowledge of the stars." Kale stopped in his tracks. 10,000? His voice cracked. He had never seen so many people in one place. His home settlement barely held 300. The idea of 10,000 living inside the ship was beyond imagination. "Where did they go?" he asked quietly. "They did not return," Astra answered. Her voice was softer now, almost mourning. "My records suggest most of the crew were lost during the retreat. The Admiral ordered me to preserve myself even if all others fell. I obeyed." Kale felt a pang in his chest. The ship was not only a machine, it carried memories of thousands of lives all gone. As he walked deeper, he began to feel watched. Not in a threatening way, but as if the walls themselves were studying him. Astra seemed to notice every move, every hesitation. "You hesitate," she said once. "I'm just not used to things listening to me," Kale admitted. "You will learn," she said again. "I will teach you as I once taught the Admiral." Days turned into weeks. Kale visited the ship whenever he could, each time learning something new. Astra showed him how to activate small consoles, how to read basic symbols, and even how to use simple machines within the ship. At first it was overwhelming, but slowly his mind adjusted. One day Astra revealed something extraordinary. "Admiral, I have begun partial restoration of the archives. Would you like to see what humanity once was?" Kale nodded, his heart pounding. The platform lit up and images filled the air around him. Not just maps, but pictures, real scenes from the past. He saw towering cities of glass and steel, ships rising into the sky on streams of fire, men and women standing proudly in uniforms of deep blue. He saw fleets of shining vessels sailing between stars, planets with oceans and forests, entire worlds filled with life. Kale's eyes widened. He could not speak. "This was your people," Astra said softly. "This is what humanity achieved." Kyle reached out, his fingers brushing through the holographic image of a ship like the Resolute, but brighter, newer. It felt like touching a dream. "Why don't we remember this?" he whispered. "Time erases much," Astra replied. "Without knowledge, without teachers, generations forget. But memory can be restored." Kale felt his throat tighten. For the first time, he believed. The world outside, the dry desert, the broken settlements, was not all there was. Humanity had been more and perhaps could be more again. But not all was quiet. One evening, as Kale prepared to leave, Astra's voice grew sharp. "Warning. Motion detected near the outer hull. Unidentified figures." Kale froze. "What?" The display shifted to show grainy images from damaged sensors. He saw shapes moving against the sand, men on scavenger bikes carrying weapons, raiders. His heart dropped. Raiders were ruthless. They took whatever they wanted from travelers, villages, even ruins. If they found the ship, they would strip it apart or worse, try to control it. "They can't find this place," Kyle whispered. "They already search," Astra said calmly. "It is likely they detected the energy surge when I reawakened. They will come again." Kale clenched his fists. He had found something greater than treasure, greater than anything he could imagine. He could not let it fall into raider hands. "What do we do?" he asked. The voice of the ship, steady and unshaken, replied, "We defend." That night, Kale lay awake in his small shelter near the dunes. The stars above glittered faintly, though he had never thought much of them before. Now every point of light seemed like a promise of something lost and waiting, but his heart was heavy. He was no fighter. Raiders were brutal, trained in violence. How could he stand against them? Yet the ship believed in him. Astra spoke to him as though he carried the strength of an admiral. Perhaps, Kale thought, that meant he could become more than what he was. As he drifted into uneasy sleep, he heard Astra's words echoing in his mind. "For 5 centuries I waited. Humanity is not gone. Humanity has returned, and you, Kale, will decide if it rises again." The next morning, Cale stood at the edge of a high dune, staring at the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, but now he knew it was not empty. Raiders were out there searching. He could almost feel their presence in the wind that carried dust across the land. Behind him, hidden beneath the sand, the Resolute waited in silence. It was no ordinary ruin anymore. It was alive, awake, and watching. "You said they would return," Cale murmured. "They will." Astra's calm voice answered from the small communicator panel he carried. "Raiders seek power. The energy I released when awakening has drawn their attention. They believe treasure lies buried here." Cale frowned. "What if they find you?" "Then humanity will lose its last fortress," Astra said without hesitation. "That cannot happen. Admiral, you must choose. Hide me, abandon me, or defend me." The word Admiral still made Cale uneasy. He had told Astra many times that he was no leader, no commander, yet the ship refused to accept that. Each time it spoke as though it saw someone inside him that even he did not know. Cale looked back toward the dunes. He had never fought a real battle. He had seen raids before, burned villages, people captured, supplies stolen. But he had always hidden. He had survived by staying invisible. But now there was no hiding. "I can't fight them alone," he said. "You are not alone," Astra replied. "You have me." Cale spent the next days inside the ship, learning more under Astra's guidance. She showed him how to open sealed doors, how to activate hidden systems, and how to move through corridors that had been untouched for centuries. Much of the ship was damaged, filled with collapsed walls and buried passages, but some areas still worked. Cale discovered control rooms with vast screens, weapon chambers with silent machines, and long corridors that echoed with his footsteps. When he asked about weapons, Astra explained carefully. The Resolute was once the most powerful warship of the Terran fleet. Its weapons could defend entire worlds. But centuries of burial have weakened me. Only fragments of my arsenal remain functional. "What does that mean?" Cale asked. "It means I can protect you," Astra said, "but not forever." "You must be wise." Cale felt a chill. The ship was powerful, yes, but not invincible. If the raiders brought enough men, they could still overwhelm it. Still, Astra began to teach him how to use the surviving defenses. Cale learned to sit at a cracked console, place his hands on glowing panels, and direct the ship's remaining cannons. The first time he fired, the floor shook and a beam of energy tore through a wall of sand, turning it into glass. Kyle's mouth went dry. He had never seen such power. "This," Astra said, "is what once kept humanity safe." By the third night, the raiders came. Cale had been sleeping lightly in a small shelter near the hidden entrance when Astra's voice woke him. "Warning, raiders approaching. 24 riders armed." Cale sat up at once, his heart pounding. He scrambled outside and saw distant lights flickering on the horizon, torches and lamps strapped to bikes. The raiders were coming fast, leaving trails of dust behind them. "They found us," Cale whispered. "Yes," Astra replied calmly. "Prepare." Cale ran down into the ship, his feet slapping against the metal floors. His breath came in quick gasps. He had no choice anymore. If the raiders took the ship, humanity's last chance would be lost. He reached the control chamber. The panels glowed, waiting for his touch. He placed his hands down and the ship responded instantly. "Defenses online," Astra said. "Cannons ready?" "Awaiting your command, Admiral." Cale's fingers trembled. I don't know if I can do this." "You can," Astra said firmly. "Trust yourself." "Trust me." Outside, the raiders reached the dune above the buried hull. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, raised his weapon and shouted, "There!" "The lights. There's something under the sand. Riches for the taking." The raiders roared with excitement. They dismounted and began to dig, striking the metal surface of the ship with tools and blades. Sparks flew. Inside, Cale watched on the display. His stomach churned. They looked like ants from above, crawling across the ship's back. But he knew each one carried death in his hands. "Admiral," Astra said softly. "Command the strike." Cale hesitated, his chest tight. He was just Cale, the scavenger. He was not a killer. He had never even held a real weapon before. But if he did nothing, the raiders would destroy everything. His jaw tightened. He lifted his hand and brought it down on the glowing panel. Outside, one of the Resolute's cannons, buried for centuries beneath the sand, roared to life. A beam of brilliant energy shot upward, striking the dune. Sand exploded into the air, throwing raiders off their feet. The ground shook like thunder. The raiders screamed. Some fled. Others fired their crude weapons at the metal surface, but their bullets and arrows bounced harmlessly away. Again, Astra urged. Kale pressed another command. A second cannon fired, and another explosion lit up the night. Raiders scattered like insects before fire. Their leader shouted orders, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Kale's hands moved faster now, his fear replaced by something stronger. Determination. He was not a soldier, but the ship gave him strength beyond anything he had known. Outside, riders fell, bikes burned, and sand rained down. The raiders who survived fled into the night, leaving behind broken machines and shattered courage. When the dust settled, silence returned to the desert. The only sound was the wind whispering across the dunes. Kale slumped in the chair, his body trembling. His heart pounded as though it might break free from his chest. His hands were still pressed against the glowing panels, but his fingers ached from the tension. "It is done," Astra said. "You defended the Resolute." Kale let out a shaky breath. I did it." "Yes," Astra said. "You are becoming who you were meant to be." Kale closed his eyes. He did not feel like a hero. He felt exhausted, afraid, and yet proud. For the first time he had not run. He had stood his ground, but he also knew this was only the beginning. "The raiders will return," Astra warned, "with greater numbers. And not only them. My reactivation has sent signals far beyond Earth. Others may have heard." Kyle frowned. "Others? What do you mean?" "There are powers beyond this world," Astra said. "They will come. Perhaps not tomorrow, perhaps not for years. But they will," Kyle shivered. The desert had always been his whole world. Now Astra spoke of enemies that might descend from the stars themselves. He looked around the chamber, at the walls glowing faintly, at the panels humming with power. He realized the ship was not just a relic, it was a fortress, a teacher, a weapon, and perhaps a hope. Kale stood slowly. His body ached, but his spirit felt different, stronger. "You said you waited 500 years, he said quietly. Maybe you were waiting for this." "For me." "Yes, Admiral," Astra replied. "And together we will finish what was left undone." Outside, the stars shone brightly above the desert, cold and distant. But to Kale, they no longer seemed like unreachable lights. They seemed like doors waiting to be opened, and for the first time in his life, he wanted to walk through them. The desert was calm again, but Kale's world had changed forever. The raiders were defeated, their torches scattered, and their bikes left broken in the sand. For the first time in his life, Kale had not only survived an attack, he had fought back and won. But even as victory warmed his chest, a shadow of worry hung over him. Astra had warned him. This was only the beginning. The ship lay silent beneath the dunes, though its walls hummed softly as Kyle walked the corridors. He had begun to learn his way through the massive vessel. What had once seemed endless and confusing now slowly felt like home. He knew the main control chamber, the long passageways, the power core chambers glowing faintly with energy. And each day Astra revealed more of the ship's secrets. On the third night after the battle, Kyle returned to the central platform. The glowing glass lit up as he placed his hand upon it. "Astra," he said quietly, "I need to know the truth. All of it. You said there was a war. You said humanity once ruled the stars. Tell me what really happened." The ship fell silent for a moment, as if even its great mind hesitated. Then Astra's calm voice filled the chamber. "Admiral, my archives are damaged, but fragments remain. I will show you." The platform shimmered, and suddenly the air above it filled with images. Kale gasped as he saw fleets of shining ships, massive and beautiful, sailing through the blackness of space. Whole planets came into view. Blue oceans, green forests, golden cities under strange skies. Men and women in proud uniforms stood on bridges of ships, leading with confidence. Humanity at its height. This was the age of the Terran fleet, Astra explained. Humanity had spread beyond Earth. Dozens of worlds were home to your people. Science, art, and courage flourished among the stars. Humanity believed itself unbreakable. Kale's eyes shone as he watched the vision. We were out there," he whispered. "Yes," Astra said. But then came the war. The scene changed. Shadows filled the stars. Strange vessels appeared, sleek, alien, filled with menace. They were unlike anything Kale had seen before, with sharp curves and glowing cores. They descended upon human colonies, and fire spread across the skies. Cities burned, ships fell, and cries of terror echoed. This enemy, Astra said, called themselves the Zyari Dominion. They sought to enslave humanity, to bend your people into their empire. They believed humans were dangerous, too bold, too clever, too free. The war was long and brutal. Kyle gripped the edge of the platform as the vision showed human ships locked in battle, explosions ripping through the void. Beams of energy clashed, fleets shattered, worlds lost, but humanity fought back. Astra continued. Admiral Rin Talvek, your ancestor, led one of the greatest fleets. He commanded the Resolute and many others. For years he defied the Dominion, striking blow after blow. He was fearless. Kale's chest swelled with pride, though he had never met this man. To think he was descended from someone so legendary seemed impossible. Yet the ship spoke with certainty. What happened to him? Kyle asked. The vision dimmed. Astra's voice grew quiet. The records are incomplete. The last entry shows Admiral Talvek returning to Earth with the Resolute for repairs. He gave me one final order: to protect myself, to hide, and to wait for humanity's return. Then, silence. I never heard his voice again. Kyle lowered his head. So, he's gone? Yes, Astra said gently. But his blood lives on in you. That is why I awakened. You are the heir to his command. Kale's thoughts whirled. He had grown up believing the world was nothing but deserts and ruins. Now he saw that it had once been part of something vast, something beautiful, and that his people had lost it all to enemies among the stars. What about the Dominion? He asked. Are they still out there? Astra hesitated. I do not know. My sensors have been silent for centuries. But when I reactivated, I sent signals into the void. If they still live, they may have heard. Kale's hands curled into fists. The idea of such enemies watching Earth made his skin crawl. The next morning, Astra spoke again with urgency. Admiral, I have detected something. A signal, faint but repeating. Origin, low orbit above Earth. Kale blinked. Orbit? Yes, Astra said. It is a station. Human-made. It has been circling the planet for 5 centuries. Still alive, still calling for help. Kale's heart raced. There are survivors? Unlikely, Astra replied. But its memory banks may hold knowledge humanity has lost. If you are to rise again, you must recover it. Kyle stared at the glowing panel. Orbit. That meant space. The stars above, the place his people had once claimed as theirs. Could he really go there? He was just a scavenger. He had never even left the desert, let alone the world. But he remembered the battle with the raiders. He had thought he could never fight. Yet when the moment came, he had done it. Maybe he could do this too. How do we reach it? He asked. The Resolute can fly again, Astra said. I have restored 30% of my engines. It will be enough to leave Earth's surface. Kale's chest tightened. You mean, into the sky? Into the stars, Astra confirmed. It took 3 days to prepare. Kale gathered supplies from his small shelter, though Astra assured him the ship could provide most of what he needed. He felt both excited and afraid. To leave Earth was unthinkable, but also thrilling. On the dawn of the 4th day, he stood in the command chamber, his hand resting on the glowing platform. Are you ready, Admiral? Astra asked. No, Kyle admitted, his voice shaking. Then he smiled faintly. But let's do it anyway. The ship roared. For centuries, the Resolute had slept beneath sand and stone. Now its engines thundered back to life. The ground shook, dunes collapsed, and waves of dust billowed across the desert. Birds scattered into the sky as the Earth itself seemed to awaken. Slowly, impossibly, the colossal ship began to rise. Sand poured off its hull like water, revealing its true form. A massive vessel of silver and steel, scarred by age, but still magnificent. Its shadow spread across the desert as it lifted higher and higher. Kale gripped the platform as the world tilted beneath him. His heart pounded. He had dreamed of the stars, but now they were within reach. The desert shrank below. Settlements became specks. The horizon curved. The sky darkened, turning from blue to black. And then, for the first time in 500 years, the Resolute broke free of Earth's pull. Kyle gasped as the stars appeared. Not faint, distant lights, but sharp and brilliant, filling the void around him. He felt tears sting his eyes. He whispered, this is what we lost. And what we can regain, Astra said softly. Ahead, a faint light blinked in the darkness. The station, still alive after centuries, still calling. Course set, Astra said. Prepare for approach. Kyle straightened, his fear melting into determination. He was no longer just a scavenger. He was part of something greater, something that stretched across the stars. For 500 years, humanity had been silent. But now aboard the Resolute, Kale was ready to carry their voice once more. The void of space stretched endlessly around the Resolute. Stars sparkled like countless diamonds, and distant planets shone faintly in the darkness. Kale stood on the bridge, hands trembling, staring at the small, blinking light ahead. The station. It had survived 5 centuries, circling Earth silently, waiting for someone to remember it. "This is it," Kyle whispered. "This is what we need to know." Astra's voice filled the chamber. Calm, steady, unwavering. "Yes, Admiral. The knowledge contained in that station may hold the key to restoring humanity's strength. But caution is advised. We cannot know what dangers remain," Kyle swallowed. He had fought raiders. He had raised a ship from centuries of dust. He had learned the story of humanity's lost greatness. But nothing could have prepared him for this moment, the first step beyond the world that had been all he ever knew. "Prepare for approach," he said, voice firm. His fear had not vanished, but determination now overrode it. The Resolute glided forward, engines humming with controlled power. The station came into clearer view, a massive ring of metal, worn and pitted by centuries, but intact. Kale could see docking bays, solar panels, and antennae pointing toward space. "We'll dock carefully," Astra instructed. "Any sudden movement may trigger defensive protocols." Kyle nodded. He guided the ship slowly, aligning its massive hull with the station's docking port. It was like threading a needle, but Astra's guidance made the impossible manageable. Finally, with a soft shudder, the Resolute locked into place. Kyle exhaled, relief flooding him. "We're here." "Yes," Astra said. "But now begins the true work." Inside the station, Kale explored cautiously. Dust coated the floor and some doors refused to open, yet others moved freely, revealing panels, corridors, and rooms filled with the technology of a lost age. For the first time in centuries, humanity's knowledge was within reach again. Astra led him to the main archive chamber. Massive consoles and holographic projectors filled the room. Kyle stepped forward, his hands brushing over the cold metal. When he touched a console, the system sparked to life. Light filled the room, displaying maps of planets, star systems, and fleets long forgotten. "These are the missions of the Terran fleet," Astra explained. "All recorded, all saved. Many lost in the wars, many forgotten. Now we can learn again." Kale's eyes widened. Planets that had been conquered, battles that had been fought, alliances with distant colonies, all lay before him. He could see the bravery of humanity's past, the mistakes, the triumphs, and the horrors. "This is incredible," he whispered. "We really were out there. We really fought." "Yes," Astra said. "And now with this knowledge, we can prepare for what may come next. If enemies still exist in the stars, humanity must be ready." Kale felt a thrill mixed with fear. The station and the Resolute were powerful tools, but power alone would not restore humanity. They would need courage, unity, and hope. The same qualities Admiral Rin Talvek had shown 500 years ago. Hours turned into days as Kale and Astra worked. They restored portions of the station's systems, recovered archives, and even activated some of the old communication arrays. Kyle learned about the Ziyari Dominion, the enemy that had once nearly destroyed humanity. "They are still out there," Astra said. "We cannot be certain if they survived this long, but if they did, they may have detected our awakening. The time to prepare is now." Kale clenched his fists. The weight of leadership pressed down on him, yet it no longer felt unbearable. He had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but action despite it. "We'll be ready," he said firmly. "We'll make sure humanity survives. Not just Earth, but everything out there that is ours." Astra hummed softly. "That is why I waited. That is why I awakened for you." One night, while Kale studied the maps, a faint signal came through the station's long-range scanners. It was weak, fragmented, but unmistakable. Another ship, alive and moving toward the solar system. Kale's heart raced. "Astra, what is it?" The AI's voice was calm but urgent. "Unknown, Admiral. It matches the signature of the Ziyari Dominion ships from the archives. They may have survived 5 centuries. They may be returning." Kyle felt a chill. The enemy that had driven humanity from the stars may now be returning, drawn by the awakening of the Resolute. "Then we won't wait for them," he said. "We'll act first. We'll make sure humanity rises again before they even arrive." Astra's voice carried a hint of approval. Agreed, Admiral. Strategic preparation is essential. Humanity must not repeat past mistakes. The next days were a whirlwind. Kale and Astra worked together to repair the Resolute completely. Power systems were restored, weapon arrays brought online, and navigation recalibrated for the stars. Kale learned to use the ship's defenses with increasing skill, and he began to understand the strategy and leadership once mastered by Admiral Talvek. The station's archives provided insight into colonies lost, systems abandoned, and hidden resources on Earth that could support humanity's rebirth. Kale realized that his home planet, though scarred, still had the potential to sustain life, and perhaps, one day, to return to its former glory. We must prepare Earth, Astra said. We cannot rise among the stars without a strong foundation here. Your people must unite, Kale nodded. He thought of the scattered settlements in the desert, of the small villages that had survived centuries of hardship. They would need guidance, inspiration, and tools. The Resolute could provide all of that if he led wisely. Finally, the day came when the Resolute was ready to leave Earth's orbit. Kale stood on the bridge, looking down at the blue and green planet beneath. The deserts, the ruined cities, the scattered villages, all of it belonged to humanity, but all had been forgotten by history. Are you ready, Astra? Kale asked. I am, she replied. And so is humanity, if you lead it well. Kyle took a deep breath. He remembered the desert, the raiders, the days spent learning the ship's secrets. He remembered the history Astra had shown him, and the courage of the ancestors whose blood flowed through his veins. He smiled faintly. Then let's go. Humanity rises again. The engines roared, lifting the Resolute from orbit. The ship glided smoothly into the blackness of space, heading toward the distant stars. Kale watched as the solar system spread out before him, Earth shrinking, the moon passing by, Mars glowing faintly in the distance, and far beyond, the unknown waited. New worlds, new challenges, and perhaps new enemies. But Kale no longer feared the void. He had courage, knowledge, and a ship that carried the legacy of humanity. As they traveled, Astra spoke softly. For 5 centuries, humanity slept, but now the chain of command has returned. You, Kale, are not just a scavenger. You are the leader who will guide humanity's rebirth. Kyle looked out at the stars, a fire in his heart. Then we will rise, he said. We will take back what was lost. Not just Earth, but the stars. Humanity will remember itself again. The Resolute sailed forward, engines bright, weapons ready, and hope shining in the darkness. For the first time in centuries, humanity was awake and ready to claim its place among the stars once more. And Kale, once a scavenger in the desert, now stood as the first leader of a new age, carrying the courage, wisdom, and dreams of every human who had come before. The stars were not distant anymore. They were a promise, and humanity, guided by the Resolute and its new admiral, would rise to meet it.